Simon. Andrew having the Togekiss again that we saw from Collinsville all that time ago, and Dialga and Grimmsnarl on Andrew's side, and then Zacian Butterfree for Max.
Now that is a Pokemon that I'm sure Andrew is nervous to see. I mean, the nice thing about Grimmsnarl is that due to its prankster ability, you know, most people are running that right now on Grimmsnarl. He could try and maybe go for a paralysis off a Thunder Wave on that Butterfree, slow it down, ensure that the Dialga won't get put to sleep before it gets the opportunity to attack. Alternatively, Grimmsnarl also can learn Fake Out, which a lot of people have been teching in recently to sort of make situations like this a little bit easier. I think Andrew's biggest concern, though, going into this lead isn't actually the Butterfree, because Zacian, if it has Sacred Sword, which most do carry a fighting-type move, could just go straight for the attack into that slot. Dialga would take a ton of damage, and that would be something really unfortunate for Andrew to start this game off with.
And one of the big developments throughout the Sword and Shield era of VGC has been weakness policy Pokemon. So you always have to be cognizant of that, right? You can't just go for the super effective attack. You know, eventually we'll learn what Dialga's held item is, but if it's holding weakness policy, that is something that would be a big reveal in game one. Of course, there are other moves or held items that Dialga also can use effectively. But this is really what game one of a set in a round is what is for to find out. So the Fake Out goes into Butterfree's
Quick Guard.
Excuse me, Quick Guard from Zacian. So that's not the Fake Out. And Sleep Powder connects onto the Dynamax Dialga there. So this first turn of Dynamax is completely useless. So Zacian with the Quick Guard stopped all the priority attacks.
That is a unique move that, quite frankly, I have not seen on a Zacian at all. Most Zacian run 3 attacks plus a Protect. Alternatively, sometimes you'll see something like a Substitute in there, maybe even a Imprison if someone's really worried about that matchup. But that Quick Guard just putting Dialga straight to sleep and really forcing Andrew to sit here and take a couple turns of attacks. But looks like he might try to get in on that Sleep Powder action himself with that Ditto.
Yeah, it's a Sleep Powder is a pretty good move. Might as well use it myself as the Ditto transforms into a Butterfree. Rage Powder will redirect any attacks that will be going towards the Zacian into the Butterfree instead. But for now, Zacian with that Behemoth Blade into the Ditto slot is a one-hit KO. And Ditto, obviously, by getting knocked out there, is not holding a Focus Sash.
Oh, but Dialga woke up!
Woke up on the second turn. Max Quake, but it got redirected into Butterfree, who's a flying type. So really difficult turn for Andrew there, because had the fortune of waking up, but because of Rage Powder redirecting away, didn't do any damage.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for that Ditto too, since a lot of times people who run Ditto run it for situations like this where your opponent just has a problematic Pokemon, and then rather try to figure out, okay, how do I beat that? You can just say, I'm gonna just borrow that for a little bit and, you know, use that Rage Powder, use that Sleep Powder for myself. A lot of Ditto also carry Choice Scarf, which could have meant that this Ditto would have been faster than the opposing Butterfree, and we've seen some interesting stuff there. But, you know, fortunately for Andrew, the fact that the Dialga woke up means that he can sort of adjust for a Rage Powder again this turn, but instead it looks like we might just be trading Behemoth Blades on the Zacian.
Yep, Zacian into Butterfree will bring Butterfree down to 1 HP because Max's Butterfree is holding the Focus Sash there, so it is able to endure any attack when it is at full HP. And now the Zacian on the other end will go into Dialga there. It is a resistant attack, so that just shows how strong the Zacian is, that it did that much damage to a resisted, or to a Dynamax Pokemon with an ineffective attack. Sleep Powder does land on to Andrew Zacian though this turn, so next turn it will be forced to take 1 turn of sleep. Max Steel Spike on this third and final turn of Dynamax for Andrew will get rid of that pesky 1 HP on the Butterfree's end and increase both defenses, or the defense of both of Andrew's Pokemon by 1 stage.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good turn for Andrew. You know, yes, he didn't get damage down on the Zacian on Max's side of the field, and that's still something he has to worry about. Knowing that his Pokemon are at +1 defense against that Zacian does make this a little bit easier. Unfortunately for Andrew, though, his Zacian is asleep, and it looks like Max has revealed the Charizard on his side of the field, and Max has not used his Dynamax yet, which means if this is a Gigantamax Charizard, this would be an amazing opportunity to go for the Gigantamax, get that Wildfire up on the field, start dealing residual damage, take those Pokemon out. But, you know, exactly. I think Andrew directs the Sleep Powder that first turn so you can get Butterfree down to Sash and then try and use the fact that your Zacian is faster to just knock it out. And it looks like Togekiss is going to be that adjustment we see from Andrew out on the field.
Yep, Togekiss and Dialga are the lead for Andrew in game 2, and then Butterfree and Zacian for Max. So the same exact lead, having Intrepid Sword, boosting its attack by 1 stage. Really the only item that Zacian would be holding because it's so helpful, makes you stronger, and it really negates and Intimidate from a potential Pokemon on the other end. At this point, there is no priority move, so now Zacian doesn't have to worry about clicking Quick Guard. Yeah, Zacian can go on the offense here, and like hypothetically, a Behemoth Blade into that Togekiss is going to do so much damage because of Togekiss's Fairy typing. So even if Andrew is able to protect the Dialga this turn from the Sleep Powder, it's possible that the Togekiss might just get knocked out for it. And knowing that the Butterfree has the Focus Sash item, you have to think to yourself, okay, how do I get through this so that Butterfree is not on the field next turn so I don't have to worry about being put to sleep? Togekiss will follow me on this turn, so any attacks that would be targeted towards its partner will be redirected to that slot. Here is the Behemoth Blade, and there's the Berry reveal, so that will negate some of the damage from a super effective Steel-type attack coming into the Togekiss. So will it be enough to hang on? And yes, it brings it down into the red, so that just shows how strong the Zacian is. Instead, the Berry still did 90% to it there, but this Sleep Powder from Butterfree will go towards the Togekiss. Togekiss is totally fine with that because now on this turn, Dialga gets a max Rockfall, targeting down Butterfree, obviously bringing it down to the Focus Sash, and more importantly, setting up the sand with the residual damage will knock out the Butterfree. And that's exactly how you get around this situation. It's unfortunate that Togekiss is put to sleep, but you know, we saw the Berry activate. It was able to redirect that 1 turn of attack for the Dialga. That was all Andrew needed to really open this game up for him. Admittedly, you know, a lot still depends on what Pokemon that Max has in the back. If that Kyogre were to make an appearance, that could mean the weather will change almost immediately. The Charizard making an appearance is interesting because you would assume that a Max Rockfall from the Dialga at this point in time would easily knock that out, but Charizard and Zacian are definitely faster than Dialga. You know, they just have higher base speeds, and as a result, Togekiss no longer able to redirect. This is that perfect time to get that G-Max Wildfire out onto the field. That plus the Sacred Sword is going to do so much damage to that Dialga. I would be very surprised if it's still hanging on at the end of this turn. Right, Max is trying to brute force through the Dialga on this turn, knowing Togekiss is forced to stay asleep because it had not taken its first turn of sleep yet. So Togekiss went for the Follow Me, but of course not going to be able to wake up. And it's up to Dialga. Is there a max guard? No. So the Zacian and Charizard attacks will be going into that slot. Double damage to Dynamax Pokemon. That's why the Behemoth Blade does so much damage, even though it's an ineffective attack. And then G-Max Wildfire is a neutral attack onto the Dialga there. So it is not enough to knock it out, though. So this Dialga is going to get 1 attack off this turn with the Max Rockfall. Obviously 4 times super effective into Charizard. So that Charizard never stood a chance, and now Max is down to its final phase. We are going to see an interesting in-between turn interaction here with the residual damage. We'll see Togekiss not only get hit by the Sandstorm, but also will be taking damage from the G-Max Wildfire. And given that is enough to secure the knockout onto that Togekiss, Andrew is now down to his last 2 Pokemon. Same thing with Max, actually. So this could be a really interesting situation if we have the Zacian coming out for Andrew and that Kyogre possibly making an appearance for Max. But it looks like instead it's going to be Whimsicott and Ditto. So Andrew making a prediction in Team Preview that he could just use Ditto's imposter ability to copy that Zacian, and he doesn't have to worry about bringing his own Zacian. And this also gives him a lot of information. You know, he just copied all of this Zacian's moves. You know, he sees the Quick Guard. He knows what else is over there. And I think that's going to give him a bit of an advantage, except for the fact that this Ditto will most likely be knocked out in 1 hit. So can Ditto outspeed
the opposing Zacian, and can Ditto find a way to get that knockout in that single hit? It's a bit of a big ask, especially when you have Whimsicott right there to provide support with like Tailwind or maybe a helping hand or even just some additional chip damage on top of everything.
I'm thinking that since Ditto doesn't have the Focus Sash, another common item like you mentioned earlier is Choice Scarf. So at that point, Ditto or the Zacian would be faster than the other one, but because of Whimsicott's Prankster ability, Tailwind will be set up for Max's side, doubling their speed. So now Max's Zacian is faster than the Ditto version. Will be a neutral hit, but because the Ditto is brought down very low, down to 13 HP. Not enough for a knockout, though, so it will be able to get one attack off back into the Zacian, and that is a one-hit KO there.
And that means that this Dialga is now free to attack into the opposing Whimsicott, and we already know where the Focus Sash is, so that is a knockout, and Andrew is able to tie the score up 1-1 thanks to that Ditto taking that Behemoth Blade.
Yeah, that was an awesome
versus Zacian matchup, a little bit easier if you get it onto the field early enough. But, you know, I like this lead from Andrew going into game 3, you know, just respecting the threat of that Butterfree. But it looks like we have another great friend on the field joining us today.
Somebody tell Ash Ketchum that Pikachu has made it onto the stream here in Salt Lake City. Pikachu, a Pokemon that you would think, oh, it's not even fully evolved, you'd rather use Raichu, but no, because of Light Ball, Pikachu's stats actually get raised by holding that item, so it's actually a much stronger offensive pressure than what Raichu could potentially output.
Yeah, and like we were mentioning before this match started, you know, if Pikachu's had a little bit of that Gigantamax soup, you know, Pikachu's G-Max form really can just throw everything into chaos, you know, paralyzing everything on the field, and looks like, you know, we're going to get some extra little friends on the field. You know, unfortunately, as Ditto has not gone for anything.
So Ditto transforms into Pikachu, which gets the Lightning Rod ability, which will redirect the electric attack away from Togekiss into it, increasing its special attack by 1 stage. The Sleep Powder will go towards that slot, which was meant for Dialga there. But now Togekiss is free to Dazzling Gleam, which is a spread attack, hitting both of the Pokemon and breaking Butterfree's Focus Sash. So, Gabby, not only do we have one Pikachu in this match, but we ended up with 2 here in Game 3.
I know, and even though the Ditto is asleep, that doesn't mean that Andrew can't, you know, bring it back into his party and bring it back later to copy a different Pokemon. You have to make a couple of guesses here about sleep turns, and honestly, I think you keep the Pikachu out on the field this turn just to make sure that Max cannot target your Togekiss with any super effective electric type attacks. We saw the Volt Tackle earlier. That would have been really bad for that Togekiss. So really a great defensive play, just again showing how comfortable he is with this Ditto, and Max finding himself in a position where, assuming this Togekiss does have access to an attack like Air Slash, that Butterfree is going to go down, making it much safer for his real, actual, authentic Zacian to make another appearance.
So there is Andrew Zacian switching into the Ditto slot there. Max also switching out their Pikachu, so we might have that battle come up a little bit later again into Charizard. But Butterfree with Sleep Powder towards that Togekiss slot will connect and put it to sleep this turn, so we'll not be able to go for any attack. Likely an Air Slash into Butterfree to knock it out. So that was its first turn of sleep here. Now you have Charizard who can go for a G-Max attack into the Zacian, so Andrew has to be worried about that.
He really does. I think it's interesting that the Zacian made an appearance. Maybe he was worried about the double Sleep Powder into that slot. You know, if the Dialga is put to sleep, then you really are in a tough spot, as the Dialga is able to resist this Charizard a lot better than the Zacian is. But so far, no switches, just our little Pika friend coming back out onto the field, and Zacian gonna try and take the heat from this Charizard this turn.
Let's see if he can. The Pikachu will not be Dynamaxing in this set, unfortunately. Instead, it's going to be G-Max Charizard, the much more likely Dynamax attacker there. G-Max Wildfire is super effective, obviously, into Zacian. Would also do so much damage to Togekiss as well.
But I just gotta say, I love G-Max Pikachu, and the fact that there was potential here just fills me with joy.
Yes, absolutely. Behemoth Blade from Zacian into the G-Max Charizard again,
that's
into
Pikachu.
Pikachu, so not even worrying about the Wildfire coming in its direction, just wants to get rid of the Pikachu, which remember was Butterfree on that turn. So Andrew prioritizing that Butterfree slot to get rid of it, but G-Max Wildfire, a one-hit knockout, and Andrew's restricted Pokemon goes down with two Pokemon that are asleep in Ditto and Togekiss, and then the Dialga who can come out here and go for a Dynamax attacks. It is looking very strong for Max.
It is, but Andrew does have a couple of outs here. You know, a lot of them do revolve around when does Togekiss wake up? You know, if Togekiss wakes up this turn and Dialga goes for a Protect or a Max Guard, you know, depending on if he decides to Dynamax or not, Togekiss can wake up, knock out that Butterfree, and bring Max down to his last two Pokemon. You know, we saw the Dialga able to take a G-Max Wildfire from this Charizard and, you know, fire back the Rock Ball to get that knockout. So really, it just comes down to this Butterfree. I mean, I think if you're Max, you have to click that Sleep Powder into the Dialga to just sort of cover the fact that if the Dialga is allowed to stay awake, then that's really, you know, not a favorable position for you. But you can't target the Togekiss yet because the Togekiss is asleep and will be moving after you. So you wouldn't be able to put that back to sleep until next turn, unless you go for the follow me play, which unfortunately did not play out.
Gigantic third turn of sleep from Togekiss there, because if it woke up, it would have redirected a Sleep Powder. But unfortunately for Andrew, it does not wake up, and the Max Quake from Charizard goes into Dialga, knowing now that it's not weakness policy, you can hit it super effectively. And then the Sleep Powder into Dialga as well, only really getting one turn of, or on this first turn of Dynamax being put to sleep. So now Max with this Charizard and Butterfree is free to just, you know, keep attacking with G-Max Wildfire on this last turn of its Gigantamax.
Yeah, and knowing that all three of your opponent's Pokemon are currently asleep certainly does make this matchup feel a little bit comfier. Admittedly, this is the turn that Togekiss will finally wake up and hopefully go for a little bit of damage, but instead switching things up with an ally switch, maybe giving Dialga the opportunity to get one last attack in.
Ally switch, a nice reveal in game 3 here from the Togekiss, but
Dialga woke up.
Dialga wakes up for Max Rockfall, so only one turn of sleep. Togekiss was asleep the whole time. Dialga wakes up early, so it kind of evens out for Andrew there, knocking out the Butterfree and setting up the Sandstorm. Now Charizard has to worry because there is no redirection at this point for the next turn that Butterfree is gone. Dialga has one more turn of Dynamax available to it, so it can go for a Max Rockfall.
It could also decide to target down Max's last Pokemon, which has not been revealed yet, but one has to assume it's going to be that Zacian, given how much it did for him earlier. And then you end up in a really interesting situation that mirrors what we saw in the previous game, where there is that Ditto in the back. You know, Ditto could choose to copy that Pokemon, but instead it's going to be that Whimsicott again making an appearance, which begs the question, you know, going into this game 3, Max brought Butterfree, Pikachu, and Whimsicott. Those are 3 supportive Pokemon, and Charizard as his main attacker. I think that's a very bold play, and I'm very curious to see how it's going to play out, especially now that Charizard is done with the Gigantamax turns.
The guts to bring no restricteds in game 3 of a set is, you know, very impressive from Max. Sunny Day revealed from Whimsicott there, which will set up the sun, boosting the damage from Charizard, and a double KO. Heat Wave connecting onto both of Andrew's Pokemon. Now it's 2-1 with just the little Ditto that could, and unfortunately, I don't think it can.
I'm trying to do some math here real quickly. You know, Ditto will probably copy the Charizard. I don't think you copy the Whimsicott, even though it's a beautiful, fluffy boy.
It sure is.
But if Ditto wakes up this turn and can outspeed the opposing Charizard, even though that Whimsicott will probably go for Tailwind like we saw it do in the previous game, never mind. You just copy the Whimsicott. And you know what? Now there are 2 fluffy boys on the field, and that's also okay as well. You know, I think that Andrew is ending the game with a little bit of a smile here, knowing that it wasn't guaranteed that the Ditto would wake up that turn. And really, Max just, again, with such a bold